Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real World Productivity Podcast. I'm Adam Moody, and today I'm talking with Jeroen Corthout, co-founder of Salesflare, about his background and experiences. So we're going to jump right into this. We've got a lot of, I think, very interesting and relevant questions, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what Joeren has to share on the topic. So first of all, let's just jump right in and welcome to the podcast. The very first thing I always want to find out about people, Joeren, is just a little bit about yourself from you. So can you share as much as you want or as little just about you so we all get on kind of the same page, who you are, what your background is?
Yeah, I can share all kinds of stuff. So I'm co-founder and CEO of Salesflare. Salesflare, for people who don't know, is a CRM system for small and medium-sized businesses. It basically helps you to follow up your leads in a better way. And compared to other CRMs, what it does a bit differently is that it's essentially, we built it to be an automated system for you from the ground up. So it's a system that collects the information for you and you can still manage it. While other systems are more like manual systems where you're constantly inputting the data. And it really helps you to manage your customer relationships better. Before Salesflare, I've done all kinds of stuff. When I was a teenager, I started off with building websites. I studied biomedical engineering. I ended up doing marketing in a pharma company. Then I joined a consultancy that helped life sciences companies, like healthcare companies, to basically organize their marketing, sales, and CRM better. I tried to start a few companies, which all failed and or didn't succeed. They didn't completely fail per se, but and Salesflare is the first one that actually is succeeding. It actually started from another software company we were working on, where we had a lot of leads, and we didn't manage to. We didn't find a system that actually helped us to follow them up. It always failed at some point. Like we would use another CRM, and then at some point we would give up because we couldn't keep up with all the work we had to do in the data input. And then it becomes this vicious cycle where if you don't keep up with the data input, the data is not in the CRM. It becomes more useless. You do even less data input, and at some point, like your whole sales system falls apart, which then leads to disappointed prospects or customers and less sales, worse relationships and all that.
Yeah.
So we started thinking, how can we solve that? And now that is a business by itself.
Cool. Well, that's one interesting. There's a lot of stuff we could definitely go into there. It's an interesting background. I'm going to set most of that aside for now. I'm personally interested, but having a biomedical background and then ending up where you are, I guess it's like a lot of people, there's never a straightforward path, right, to getting where you're going to go. And I really identify with what you said about a lot of I understand you said at first that a lot of the businesses failed, and I understand where you meant about it just wasn't successful. I've seen the same thing and was recently just writing a newsletter about that most activities we have will not be successful, and we need to, learn how to prune those out so you can move on and do Salesflare, right? Because if you had stuck with all of those, you never would have gotten to this point.
Yeah, definitely. I've done some active pruning in the process. At some point, I was working like on 3 companies, and then I just had to figure out like which one do I want to focus on. I ended up pruning one, for instance, that has now raised many millions, but I still think that what I'm working on now is much more interesting. The reason why I'm not in the healthcare space anymore is I was really passionate about it, and I really want to help people, and I think there's so much that can be done in healthcare. But it's also a space where things don't move as easily. Doctors are generally resistant to new technology. There's a lot of regulation you also need to go around. And that just made it a bit less interesting. While now in the sales space, sales marketing tech space, it's the complete opposite. Like we can do so many cool things. There's regulation, obviously, when it comes to data protection and security and things like that. But the people that work in the space are looking for new stuff. They want things to be better, and that's just much more fun.
Yeah, that is interesting. It's just a complete mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
So instead of, holding back, you're actively trying to push forward, or the people who use your tools want you to be pushing forward. So interesting. All right, well, let's back it up a little bit and focus more specifically on you. I'm really curious, what's your normal routine like? We hear a lot about having good routines, importance of them, but I'm always curious, and a lot of people are like, specifically, what do you try to do on a daily basis? Are you a get up and do this thing every day? Are you just kind of you do whatever and it kind of works out, or how do you do that?
I build routines as we go, and I actually changed a lot of things this year.
Hmm.
Um, when I wake up, one day and two, I go running for half an hour. It's this specific run I do on an app. I'm a bit geeky when it comes to that, like biomedical engineer, right? So I have
Hmm.
this thing that I attach to my foot, which tells me how hard I put my foot down, which then helps me not to injure my knees,
Mm.
and I sort of obsessively track that. I don't quickly build up my running. I do it very slowly to make sure that I preserve my joints as much as possible, and also that I stay within the right heart rate zones. That's all tracked. I didn't used to do that when I was younger. I was much more impulsive and all that, but that changed.
Yeah. Oh,
The
I'm curious too.
other,
What's the name of the app or the tool, the thing you use to measure the impact?
it's called Move.
Okay.
I think Move. Wait, I'm
I'll
gonna
track it
find it.
down and we'll include that. I'm personally interested, and I think other people might be too. So I
Yeah,
definitely identify. Getting older, you got to watch the joints.
it's Move, moov.cc. And the thing I have is the Move Now, which I then combine with a heart rate monitor from a Bowler, I think.
Okay. Yeah, the chest strap.
Yeah, the
Okay.
H10 or something. I'm not exactly sure. And it works with their app. And in their app, they have like programs for all kinds of sports. I do running,
Hmm.
and I do the interval one.
Okay.
Currently, I'm doing 3 intervals and always upping the level. And then combine my heart rate data and my the data that comes from the thing around my foot, and it constantly gives me advice on like put your foot down a bit less. Now you need to go a bit faster. You're behind the pace. You're ahead of the pace. Whatever.
Cool. All right. Interesting. So you do the running, and then what comes in after that?
So yeah, one day and two now I do the running, and the other day I do push-ups and sit-ups.
Hmm.
I try to keep my body in shape, not just on the cardio level, but also make sure that with all the sitting I do in a day, I have proper muscles in the front, which helps in the back as well. So that's the other thing I do. Some working out. It's not extreme. It's just I think currently I do 60 sit-ups and 20 push-ups. I used to be way better at that when I was younger, but I have not been doing much for, I think, 15 years. So
Gotcha. Well, let's compare. I am curious because this definitely speaks to me. But I'm 41. How old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay, so I've definitely there's been a mindset shift of mine through when I was going through my 30s, where I went from, how can I maybe do muscle growth, or how can I do a short routine, to, hey, what can I
Yeah,
do for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? And so that for me has been the same change, where instead
same
of
thing.
working out a lot, it's like, okay, I can do 50 push-ups every single day, and I can see myself doing that for decades. So I'm going to try that instead of saying I'm going to go to the gym for an hour 3 times a week.
The same thing. I also think about it now, like what is something that I can keep doing, and then slowly build that up. It doesn't really matter the speed as long as I keep doing it. That's the most important thing.
Definitely. I totally agree. Yeah, I think that's a big note to make here, is for people trying to implement some routine. Like for myself, I'm trying to do some yoga now. I was like, I've just been
Yeah.
resistant to it, not for any reason. I like it. I've done it before, but I realized, yeah, I need to slowly add that in. And so I'm starting with one day a week and say, okay, if that works well, then, I'll grow it from there.
Yeah, I actually like to similarly move meditation in now.
Hmm.
I sometimes do it, but not consistently at all. And I know that if I do it, I take some time to calm down a bit, which helps in many ways. But my daily routine, I actually didn't start it at the right moment, because before I do these things, I also take a resveratrol pill from Thorn Research, I think, which is this thing which contains a few things like resveratrol, NR. I don't know exactly anymore. Nicotinamide riboside, I think, quercetin, and something else. And those are all compounds that help put your cell in restoration mode instead of in growth mode, which helps you to get older. That's at least what the latest research said. It's not super proven yet, but there's quite some studies already that point that direction. I read the book Lifespan, written by David Sinclair, and that's what this is based on. I also take a vitamin B12. I'm not American, so I don't take a lot of extra stuff.
Yeah.
But this is absolutely essential because I'm eating vegan now.
Okay.
Or actually, whole foods plant-based, but my wife tends to tell everyone that I'm vegan. I just like to not eat processed foods and as many plants as possible. And if you don't eat a lot of meat, then you need B12. Otherwise, you get all kinds of weird disease. When you get neuropathy, where the ends of your muscle, your nerves start aching in very weird ways and stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I knew that, yeah, you needed to take supplements. So for anyone listening, if you're considering the vegan-ish or whole more plant-based diet, yeah, make sure you're taking your supplements. Wow. So this is really good timing because I had seen some of your interviews, your previous interviews, and I've seen the bicycle in the background. And although people can't see it today, your bike it is there. So obviously running sounds like your main physical activity. Do you also ride a bike, or what else do you do?
Not currently. It is my bike. It is on rollers there. It's currently used by my wife. I'm now all into running. Maybe I add biking to it at some point, but like you said, it's most important thing right now is that I keep doing the running. I build a rhythm there, and when that's effortless, and I want to add the biking, and I think that is sustainable, I'll do it. But I used to bike a lot, actually. When I was 16 to 18 or so, my best friend was a cyclist. Now not anymore. I mean, he still sometimes does it, but we would go training a lot, and that was so much fun. Yeah.
Nice. So does that kind of wrap up your morning kind of physical activity? Because I want to transition into what do you do when you kind of begin to work? So
yeah, sure. Yeah, I eat stuff, blah blah, blah, and then I go work. We start off our day with a stand-up meeting. This is a very simple thing to do. We basically, for a while during the pandemic, we used to do them in a written way. Now we do them live every morning. Basically, we jump together on a Zoom call every morning. And what we do there is we say what we've done the past day, the last day, and say what we're going to do that day. It is an amazing way of, first of all, for yourself, planning your day and reflecting on the previous day, but then also as a team communicating about what you're doing, which is very helpful as well. When you always know what all the others are doing, you can be so much more efficient as a team. But I would say the most important thing is for yourself, even. Like, if you know what you're going to do in a day, you can be so much more productive.
And if you can communicate that to even simply in a call, it's much more clear than just assuming you know what you're going to do. Or the other thing I'm thinking of, I haven't done a stand-up meeting with my team before, but I think that one of the good things, like you were talking about, if everyone knows what everyone else is doing, there's no chance of major people going way off the path. You know, no one's going to be doing something for a long time and find out, oh, I should have been doing something else. You're going to find out on a daily basis what's going on.
Yeah, and it makes it easier to collaborate. Like my first experience in a big company, for instance, I worked in that company for as a pharma company for 10 months, and most of the people around me, actually, that I was sitting with every day, I had no idea what they were doing. So it makes it very hard for us to function as a team, because you don't know what they're doing. So it's not like, oh, you're doing that, I can help with that. That just doesn't exist. And we do this on a on a very detailed, meticulous basis. So we can always like actually function as a team, almost a machine, always working on the right stuff together.
Gotcha. And with this, how many people are on this call?
We're the 7 of us on the
Okay,
call.
cool. And is that Salesflare or is this kind of like the
That is
leadership team?
Salesflare. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't know. I was
We're
like, it could be 3 people, could be 30, who knows? So, all right,
yeah.
cool.
No, we're serving thousands of companies with just 7 people.
That's awesome.
So we need to be very efficient. Um, that's we do all these kind of things to communicate very effectively. We automate most of the things we do in the company. We have all kinds of software doing the job for us. As you know, we also make sure that we don't need to offer a lot of support because everything is more or less clear. So
Gotcha.
anyway, in my routine then,
Yeah.
I don't really have anything defined after that. In the day, I try to batch up some meetings.
Hmm.
Sometimes I have some in the morning when it's Australia, because it's their end of day.
Hmm.
So I do some there. I try to do some focus work then, or I have an internal meeting. Same in the afternoon, and then end of day is always US calls, because then I'm in Europe, so
Yeah.
one end is Australia and the other end is the US. So the end of my day is mostly all kinds of calls, mostly podcasts actually.
Okay. Cool. Well, then, speaking of speaking, I went to LinkedIn to obviously check out a little bit more about you. I had heard about you, also to check out how to pronounce your name correctly so that I could introduce you and hopefully meet you correctly. But I noticed that you speak 6 languages, or at least that's what it says on LinkedIn. So I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but this might not be as remarkable in Europe, but it still seems impressive to me. And I'm curious because from a learning aspect, was this something you actively pursued, or was it just by virtue of where you grew up and the people you were around?
First of all, in Europe, in some countries, it is remarkable. In some other countries, less.
Hmm.
Um, for instance, so in Belgium, we have 2 or 3 national languages. My mother tongue is Dutch. When I was a kid, we lived in the French-speaking part, and actually right next to the German-speaking part. If we would have stayed there a year longer, I would have had German when I was 7 at school. In the end, I had it from when I was 15, 16. That's when it started in secondary school. We started having German. So actually, we have like Dutch from the beginning, right? And
Yeah.
then French from when we're 10 years old, English from when we're 14 years old, and German from 16, let's say.
Okay.
So we already start off with 4. We went a lot on vacation to Italy. I
Mm.
liked the language. At some point, I figured I'd like to study there. I did that, so I studied Italian. I studied biomedical engineering at the Politecnico in Milan. So hence the Italian. I have actually, my wife is Brazilian,
Mm.
so hence the Portuguese on my LinkedIn profile. I also studied Spanish. Sort of disappeared between the other languages. The
Yeah.
other 3 Roman languages erased that a little. And then at school, actually, I also had Latin. I studied that for 3 years, and Old Greek, which I studied for 5 years.
Gotcha. Okay, so this kind of leads in then. So one, I appreciate you answering it. I know it seems like a bit of a tangent, but I was like, this stood out to
Mhm.
me, and seeing as how it's something you apparently like to learn, or at least enjoy it, or have the capacity to figure these things out. So with Salesflare being around for 7 or more years now, you co-founded and led a growing company. So I just want to start off, this is very general, but what can you talk about leading a growing company? And from that, I think I'll come up with some more questions, but I'm curious too, because you had to have learned a lot as you went along. What you're doing now in 2021 with Salesflare is not the same as what you did in 2015, right?
No, it's very different. Um, I could talk about a lot of things, but I think the main thing for other founders
Hmm.
is that your job mostly evolves a lot. I used to start off building product, still do that, but it's less of my time. In the beginning, we were just I was basically doing partly customer research and partly product. Then that customer research turned more into part sales and support and customer research. Then the sales at some point became marketing. So I started doing marketing. We started getting a lot of organic traffic. I did support for a while, just almost all the time. Then I was able to hand that over, could focus back on marketing a little. So my job is always shifting. Currently, my job is, I would say, mostly marketing,
Hmm.
partly product, and then a lot of other stuff. Um, a lot of it is around creating better processes, improving things, making sure that the team works together more effectively. Um, yeah.
So as you went through this, I'm curious, did you, this sounds familiar to me. I've heard other people talk about this. Did you have anything that kind of guided you, or that you look back and you're like, I read this article, or I talked to this person, or I had this mentor, or that opened my eyes to, yeah, I need to stop doing support? Or was it just you realized, if I keep doing these things, we're not going to grow. I need to switch. So I need someone else to take care of this other stuff.
Yeah, more the second thing.
Okay.
And I think the way it works is you start doing something, you start figuring out how it works, you start finding the right approach. But at some point, you feel like, okay, uh, we figured it out now. Somebody else could do it, and I could focus myself on something that needs me now. And then you just find someone that is better at doing what you have been figuring out than you, and you move on to the next thing.
Gotcha. All right. So with Salesflare, obviously you gave a little bit of an introduction to it in the beginning, but I would think with Salesflare and your experience in other businesses, I'm curious what you could tell either entrepreneurs, small business owners, people, whether they're operating solo or maybe just a few people on their team, about keeping a prospect and sales pipeline flowing. Because I know with a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, whether it's agencies or small businesses, and almost like you said, you get in the role of, okay, you're busy marketing, you're the salesperson, but then you've got to fulfill, and then your pipeline isn't full, and then you scramble and got
Yeah.
to get more people. So you've got to know a lot about this. I'm really curious what your advice is for people.
And how to keep your sales pipeline filled, but also
Yeah.
deals moving.
Yeah, especially for the smaller people, I think it's one thing when you have an established business with established roles, but if it's you as a
Mm-hmm.
solo operator, or maybe you have a couple part-time employees, do you have any advice, or, for people
Yeah.
like that?
I would say try to build some rhythm. That's an obvious one, perhaps, but don't just focus on revenue goals that you have in mind. Make sure that you translate that into this is the amount of people I want to add to my pipeline every week, perhaps. So you have a number there and you know what to hit, plus the amount of deals you need to close in a week. Maybe it's not one a week, even maybe it's a few a month or so, but have a number there that you can work towards. If you have these two numbers, you can sort of keep your pipeline in check. What happens in a lot of companies is that it's a sort of roller coaster between closing a lot of deals and then all of a sudden having an empty pipeline again and needing to fill it again. You want to avoid that. You want to be able to focus on two things. There are some books that will tell you to split up these two jobs in two different roles. It is a possibility, but if you're a smaller company, it's probably the same person. And
Mm,
in that case, you need to keep yourself balanced. Get a CRM that helps you with it, obviously.
yeah.
One that you enjoy using and that actually helps you with that follow up. And then your job is not too complicated. You define a good sales process because you're guiding people from essentially from point A to point B. point A where they have a problem that you can solve, and B where you're solving it. In between that, especially in B2B sales, there's steps, and they might take some time, they might take some convincing. So it's good to map out these steps, and then at every step of the way, always focus on getting people to the next step. If you have it mapped out well, then you know always what the next step is. You can communicate it very well to your customer. You can start identifying their context and how you can get them to the next step. And that's actually the second part of the job. The first part of the job is keeping it all organized with these steps, keeping track of where to when to follow up about what, still knowing all these things. So being organized is one.
Yeah.
And two is being very empathetic. That's actually what most salespeople are really good at, being empathetic, and not so much at being organized. So I think that first. Then being empathetic, like don't get on a sales call and start giving a presentation that is standard that you give to everyone else without even taking the time to meet your customer. Ask some basic questions about what it is they need. Try to understand their context. What are the things that might block whatever it is you're trying to do together, and all that. That's really important. And maybe with all the Zoom burnout nowadays, some very basic advice is take each call as if you're meeting a new person, because you are. Don't take it as just another call, because then it becomes really, really boring. It becomes this really painful process with Zoom burnout as a result. But if you take every single call as I'm meeting a new person, I'm getting to know someone, I get to understand all the things about them, I'm going to help them, and it's going to be so much more motivating, and you're going to be so much more successful at this being empathetic part.
That's really good. I really like that. And I think identify a lot of what I tell people when they're asking me questions about email, whether it's SaaS companies or e-commerce or courses, is if you're going to write your emails yourself, one thing you can always do is just whenever you write it, go ahead and write whatever's on your mind, but then reread it and ask yourself, is this something that is about them? Is it helping them, or am I talking about my own favorite subject, me? Because it's easy for us, right, to talk about ourselves, but we need to always ask, hey, is this helpful or not? And if it's not, okay, maybe it's not bad, but you need to change it and make sure it's always about them. So, and then what you said too about being empathetic really reminded me, the best thing I ever did at my master's program, I walked in there as going into a optics course in physics for a master's degree. And you would think the first thing they give us is a textbook on optics, and they didn't. The leader of the program went out and handed out copies of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I was like, this was mind blowing to to a science backgrounded person to read that. But one of the things I forget, I believe it's Dale Carnegie who wrote it,
Dale
but
Carnegie,
talks about be interested, right, in what people are doing. And for an engineer type person, that was such a mind shift, but it's really benefited me well. And I think that's what you're talking about too, like hopping on a call and just being, hey, how can I be interested? I want this to be good, not only for them, but it will make it better for you as well. So it's kind of a win-win in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely. And the point you made about emails is definitely also. I mean, it's emails next to having meetings. Writing emails is probably one of the skills to have nowadays. Always put yourself in the other person's shoes. Wonder like if they would receive it. Would they feel understood, respected? Would they feel like going to the next step with you? Or
Yeah.
and actually the biggest danger nowadays is email automation, where it's very hard to do this at scale. Like it's very hard to imagine a lot of people and then write a good email towards them. The best thing you can do there is to do it manually first. Like send the email to a first person, try to understand them and how they what they might react to. Do it with another person, another person, another person. At some point, you'll find that after applying your empathy a bunch of times, you might see that you're doing it differently in different cases, but there is this common thing going on.
Hmm.
And then based on that, you can start automating, and you can make something that sort of works for everyone, maybe with some personalization. Um, the that will completely set it apart from all the other email automation that they get, that seems like totally out of the world, where you wonder like, what was this person thinking when they were sending this?
Yeah.
Did they think it would trigger themselves even if they would receive this?
Yeah, and I'll have to say, shout out to Carrie on your team, and maybe you helped develop this, but and I'll link to the blog post too that you have on the on your blog about doing cold email outreach. And I saw on there the same template that I got, and it does work because it's good. It's about me. It's not about you, and it's short, right? It hits all the cold email, kind of things you need to do. And I want people who are listening to this, if you haven't seen one of these, to go check it out. And of course, this isn't something you can just send to anyone for any reason. Yeah, like we're hearing, you need to keep this stuff somewhat customized, but find out what people want, keep it short, and make it about them, and kind of go from there. But it works, and it works well when it is done correctly.
Yeah, the one you're talking about, that email actually gets almost a 50% response rate.
Yeah, which is
It's
great.
to get me on podcast. Basically, Gary sends it to podcast hosts we selected.
Mm-hmm.
The process before it also contributes to the 50% reply rate, where we actually check manually whether there's a match. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't do everything fully automated. That would get to quite bad results probably. But then the email itself is indeed simple, and it tries to imagine what it is for you to get these emails, which is pretty easy for me because I have a podcast as well, so I get a lot of crappy pitches. First of all, I interview SaaS founders, and they email me all kinds of people that have nothing to do with my podcast. This is the first frustration. The second one is that they send me like this A4 almost. Oh, you don't say A4 in the US, right? Like
It's like just a big sheet.
a
Yeah.
full page,
Yeah.
yeah, with all the things that the person accomplished in their lives, and I need to like figure out like, okay, does this make sense? Does it not make sense? And then there is no sort of direction to it. Um, the thing I think we ask in our first email is like whether we have to talk to you or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
This is an easy thing that actually works on not just when you try to get a podcast. It's when you're doing cold emailing. This is mostly the first step, because we're not sure that you're the right person to reach. It might be someone else, and it's a very small step for you to take. You can say like, no, it's not me, it's this other person.
Mm-hmm.
This makes that you're more likely to take action, and when you take action, the person that you redirect us to is very likely to take action, especially if we email you as the CEO or so. Then the chances are super high. And then I think in the next emails we ask, is there a form? Because very often the podcast is a form to fill out where you book. So in the next thing, and then something like that again.
Yeah,
Just
I think
to
that. Oh, go ahead.
imagine how it works on the other end, and then try to optimize for that.
Definitely. Yeah, I really like that. I've actually got a cold email campaign that I need to go edit after this, because I like the idea of asking for the referral. If you're not the correct person, can you point me in the right direction? Because if you do get that, it's basically like getting a warm referral. That person, like you said, sees it coming from a trusted source. So, great. So really like that. So back to kind of the business side of things and the team. I'm curious. You, of course, have a lot of experience. You've done a lot, but what have you done to help the other team members at Salesflare in terms of organization, productivity? Is there anything that you've done or do on a regular basis with the team to help them? Because I imagine everyone comes from different backgrounds. So I'm just curious what you've done with the team.
So I talked about the stand-up meeting earlier that we have, which is a very basic thing you can do. It's very easy to implement, and it helps a lot to have people plan their day and reflect on the previous one and communicate it to everyone and all that. Next to that, we have a bunch of different types of meetings. we have basically a similar meeting, but then more on the 2 week level,
Mm-hmm.
where we think about all the things that went well and all the things that didn't go so well in the past 2 weeks. And then the things that didn't go so well, we discuss solutions. And the things that went well, we try to extract learnings. That is our team meeting. We have another one tomorrow. That helps us to always optimize our approach and always get better at things. And at the end of that meeting, we then also do demos, where people demo the work they've done, so that everybody sees the cool stuff, it's celebrated. And then next to that, we also have planning meetings.
Mm-hmm.
We have meetings in which we plan what we're going to do in the next week or the next 2 weeks, where we go through these things together, and that then also makes it easier on a daily basis to decide what you're going to do from that list. You keep that list in Trello, and then every morning you can basically, I'm going to do this and that and that. That keeps us on the short-term track, let's say. To then make sure that we don't over focus on the operational, and we come up with new ideas. We have specific meetings for that as well. Like we recently had a growth ideas meeting, where we think about things that can improve our growth, make our business better, and then we select the best ones. We define which ones we're going to do in which month, and then just plan that in the more operational meetings.
Okay.
And then we also have all kinds of meetings around product, to scope that out, to plan it, to have requirements, where we try to limit, or to come back to the productivity there, we try to limit those meetings to 3 people. We've seen that if we include more than 3 people, these other people are not doing anything, they're just watching the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So for each of those, we select the people that are best fit there. We try to rotate a little, and then we work with a system where we basically write down every single thing we discussed in a Google Doc, and then at the end of the meeting, summarize what the other people should know about the meeting. They can obviously read the whole Google Doc, but we don't want them to. We make a quick summary, which we then place in Slack, and then everybody knows what they have to know about what was discussed in the meeting. If they want to know everything, it's in the doc.
Nice.
They can
I
find it
really
there.
like that. That's a great idea. I think that anyone with a team could definitely put that into action. I love that you're saving the time while keeping the communication, very up to date and timely, so people can get that quick summary.
Yeah, we only learn these kind of things because they have been going wrong, obviously. So like people are like, well, we don't know what's discussed there, and then we found solutions for it. And
Nice. So you mentioned a few tools. So I'm curious, you personally, as co-founder and CEO, you mentioned Trello, Google Docs just now. What are some of the other tools you use? People love this stuff, and I like to hear it too. I'm always curious what kind of tools people use for organization, running a business, things like that.
yeah, for everything from meeting reports to technical documents or whatever, it's always Google Docs, Google Sheets for spreadsheets. We are in Google Workspace there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Office 365 works as well. We just prefer Google Workspace. Then we work with Slack for everything that's internal communication and staying updated on all kinds of things that happen. So we push a ton of things into Slack, also with Zapier.
Yep.
I think we have more than 100 SAPs running that automate a lot of things in our business,
Yeah.
like all these little things where you normally have to either have a developer build something or move over data manually. That all happens with Zapier. We use Salesflare for everything. That is email outreach and sales follow-up. Not just sales, but also partnerships, and podcasts are a type of partnerships. That's all in Salesflare. Our support, then, on the other hand, is in Intercom. So customer
Okay.
relationships are mostly there. We integrate the two using Zapier, so we can easily switch from the one to the other. Trello is for planning on the business side.
Mm-hmm.
Development has moved out of that and is in Clubhouse now.
Oh,
not the
okay.
club, not the Clubhouse that is the app on your phone.
Hmm.
That's for
Like
the
an
audio
audio.
listening
Yeah.
thing. Not that Clubhouse, the other
Gotcha.
Clubhouse, which is at clubhouse.io, which is basically like Trello for development on steroids. It has so much more specific functionality there. And those are the main tools, I think. I mean, we use other stuff, Ahrefs, Google Analytics, GitHub is a
Mm,
very important one for us, in which we organize our code. But then, I don't know,
cool.
Revolut for banking and LinkedIn for a lot of relationships. I don't know, so
No,
many
no, it's
tools.
good. It's just it's always good to hear, there's always heavy overlap. I think there at this point there's nobody who doesn't use Trello for something or hasn't used it, but it's always interesting to hear some of the other ones as well. So we've just got a few minutes left. I'd like to ask you a few questions. One of
Mm-hmm.
them, this may be the one of my favorites, but I came across and said you're game for talking about Belgian beer. So I've got to know what's your favorite Belgian beer?
I tend to switch a little, but it's mostly Gouden Carolus. This is Dutch. If you would read that in English, it would be Gouden Carolus or something. It's a
I'm gonna
beer
have to have
from.
you send that if you can send me like the written version at some point. That
Yeah, I'll
that
write
would
it
be
for you in the chat right now.
great.
Um, I often
Aha.
drink the classic and the triple. The classic is a dark beer, which is a bit sweeter, and the triple is a blonde beer, but with a lot of taste.
Mm,
They're both around, I think, 9% alcohol or something. So heavy beers, but very
yeah.
tasty. You don't drink them in abundance. Well, you can obviously, but
Yeah, a few of those. Yeah.
you drink them for the taste. So it's not like the one bottle after the other or something.
Yeah.
Um, but I also often drink other stuff like.
I guess so. What's your favorite non-Belgian beer?
Oof, that's not a question you ask a Belgian person. I'm sorry. I have no idea actually. No, we are extremely chauvinistic about our beers.
Yeah.
First of all, secondly, yeah, we have so many beers that it's. I mean, you don't really have to go outside of Belgium to drink beer.
Yeah, I was just
Um,
reviewing just to be so like I don't know if this is or I've never known if I'm pronouncing it correctly, so maybe you can help me. But the
mhm.
Houblon Chouf.
A chauffe blanc, yeah, it's
Yeah.
tasty. Yeah,
Okay, so that's the one I've had before. I was looking through some and being like, I think this is a Belgian beer, but yeah,
it
those
is.
are
Yeah.
very good. Lots of the triples are really good. But yeah.
When you're asking for a non-Belgian one, there's a very good triple from the Netherlands, La Trappe. The name sounds French, but it's actually Dutch, so I don't get it either. But that's a tasty one as well. La Chouffe, actually, you mentioned the Houblon,
Mhm.
but the normal Chouffe is very good.
Mm,
The cherry Chouffe is actually very good. It's like a cherry beer of 8.5% alcohol, I think. What's really good in the winter is the nice Chouffe. It's nice with an N and then a little apostrophe. I don't know how to say it in English, a little accent. And then
mhm.
ice Chouffe. It's a dark one, very tasty as well.
Mm.
And the Chouffe Soleil is also there, is also tasty.
All right. Well, I've got some work to do. Me and my wife are taking a year off. We were like, hey, after just 2021, we're just gonna have no drinking this year, focus on other things. But we're both very into beer. She's very much into dark beer, sours, and so I'm gonna have to pass some of this along to her.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so last question for you before we wrap things up. I'm curious, what book, or it could be any piece of media, anything like that, do you find yourself recommending to people these days?
Um, I read books about very different subjects.
Oh yeah, it could be anything. Doesn't have to be productivity, business related, can be anything.
I think the one I have most recommended recently was How Not to Die. I forgot the name of the author. It's Dr.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Is that on?
Gregor, I think. Dr. Gregor. It's a book about how to adopt a diet that is better for avoiding diseases within your lifetime, basically.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I will put a link to that in the show notes. So that is going to wrap it up. Jeroen, thank you so much for the interview and sharing your information, your experience. I love it. And where can people go to find out more about you or about Salesflare? Like, where should people be looking to find out more?
Yeah, so, Salesflare is on salesflare.com, and Flare is Flare. You can find out more about the software there. You can try it without even creating an account. Just click try it for free. You'll get a little walkthrough. You can check out our blog if you want to read, for instance, that post about cold emails. If you want to find out, you can also type cold emails Salesflare into Google, I think. And if you want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn is the best place. You can send me a connection request there. Please do include a personal message, because then I know what it's about. Otherwise, I'll have to assume it's spam. If you add a personal message, I will connect with you and we can have a chat.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Real World Productivity Podcast. If you know someone that would enjoy this episode, please grab the link and send it via email, message, or whatever means works best. Now, if you're looking for more ways to increase your productivity, time management, and team building skills, be sure to go to productivity.academy/resources to find out what tools, cheat sheets, and services can get you started and make the most impact right now. For those who want to make fast changes and want to save dozens of hours, I highly recommend joining the 14-day Productivity Foundation Challenge at productivity.academy/foundation challenge. This 14-day challenge takes minutes per day, but will help you develop or improve your daily review to get more done with less distractions and loss of focus. You'll also get over-the-shoulder directions for setting up an automation to save dozens of hours and the process for deciding what else you should automate and how to do it. And if you're serious about continuous improvement and you know that productivity, time management, and team building will impact every area of your personal and professional life, join us in the Growth Automation membership. Find out more at productivity.academy/join.